All the ships at sea. Say your age, sir. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to you who are here in person, and welcome to everybody that's streaming the meeting online. Here we are for our first meeting in 2022. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Sounds fine.
Great. So for those of you who are new or visiting, my name is Tony Rosendahl. I've taken on the presidency for the next undetermined amount of time. You're talking hours, right? So Joe's flashing Tim's fingers at me. So it's maybe weeks, 10 weeks. Okay, sure, yeah, okay.
Till the audit comes through.
Till the audit comes through. Good point. So George Wozniak is going to give us a financial and a membership report.
Where do I look? Okay, financial. As of yesterday, we had $9,959.17 in the account, but I have a number of checks that are going to go in, plus people are paying their dues. So I will have some more cash to go on also. Speaking of dues, next month, since we're not going to have an online meeting, we're only going to have an online meeting. So please, if you have not paid your dues are due. It's $35 per person. Family membership is $50. You can send it to me, George Wozniak, and I live in Franklin, and you can get my address off of our website, or you can pay through PayPal on our website, and they add a little bit of a surcharge. So I'd really like to get these in. We were only about half of our members have renewed so far. Thank you for those who have, and look forward to seeing everybody else pay. We have a guest. We have a lot of guests tonight. Tom Hipsak, Tom, Ron Peterson, Joe and Joe Stefan and Farouk. Farouche, okay, yeah, I'm not too good at this. And Jeff Cordy. Yep. Jeff Cordy. So hopefully all of you guys will be impressed with this, with our meeting. Not on your shoulders there, Tony. And you all become members next month, which we really would appreciate. Which would give us right around 100 members, which I think is fantastic, considering the year that we've been through. So that's all I got.
Thanks, George. George mentioned this, and I'm going to mention it again, and we'll send you emails. Next month's meeting, we plan to be online only. So our demonstrator is a fellow by the name of John Jordan. John is a nationally renowned wood turner. We haven't really locked in everything with John yet, but I think he'll be demonstrating carved wooden vessels. We just haven't communicated that. That's one of the things on his list. And I need to communicate that with him. And I can't overemphasize, next month we are online only. And at this time, we don't have anybody who's volunteered to stand here in Woodcraft and tell people that we're not having a meeting. So don't show up. We won't be here. And we'll be reminding you of that again. So with the advent of COVID and what has gone on with that, and throughout some other things, we really haven't been setting the library out the way that we have for a number of years. So we've reorganized the library, and it's now in a cabinet, and John is willing, Thompson is willing to check anything in or out. Like if you have something checked out and you want to bring it in, John can check it in, or if you would like to check something out, John's willing to open the cabinets up and do that. So when we take a break here or after the meeting, feel free to contact John. John, why don't you stand up so people can have a look at you? I don't know, if you don't know who John is. Thanks. So there again, you know, COVID has really thrown us for a loop, but if you have something that you checked out some months ago, it's time to bring it back. Okay, and maybe if you don't want to come to a meeting, get a hold of John and work something out maybe to do that. There is sort of a drop box at the bottom of the stairs here. And if you just set it down at the bottom of the stairs, wow, a lot of the stuff will drop right into the MAWT drop box, right? Yeah. And or if it's too large for that, get a hold of John. So, okay. This is my first meeting as president for a number of years. I do want to recognize Ron Zadroik. We've talked about Ron on some stuff that we've written, but we really appreciate Ron stepping up 3 years ago. Ron is behind the camera here tonight, if you don't know who Ron is. And, you know, there's an old Irish curse that says, may you live in interesting times. And Ron has been a president of the MAWT through some really interesting times. And just a couple of those are the fact that we absorbed the Wisconsin Woodturners, another wood turning club, into our ranks a couple of years ago. And then, of course, at the beginning of 2020, COVID reared its ugly head. And so Ron has done a wonderful job of leading us through those interesting times, and it's highly appreciated. I know you won't be able to hear the guys at home. Thank you. So as we transition into a new year and new management, we're looking for people to help out. So we have said a number of times we need 1 or 2 individuals for the AV team, and I understand that somebody stepped up tonight. Thank you very much. It's Dave, right?
Dave, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dave. We appreciate that. I think the AV team could still use another person, but just having one really is going to help those guys out a lot. Some other people we're looking for is we could use a raffle chairman. Somebody would come in every time we have an in-person meeting, not have to ask any questions or anything, just go get the raffle bowl and the tickets. And we'd be announcing that we'd be taking, that person would be taking raffle money and handing out the tickets, and then they'd run the raffle at the end of the meeting. So we could use a raffle chairman. Sometimes Tom and Ron do some photography, but when we have show and tell items, it'd be nice if we could get a nice picture of those so that we could add those to our website. Pictures of our instant gallery that we have at most of our in-person meetings. And last couple things, stuff that I do that I've always kind of been doing, that especially now that I'm president, I could use some help with a website, which that's really probably, okay, I'll just say it. You probably have to pry that one away from me, okay? But anyway, I would love to have feedback on the website. If you have any ideas, feel free to let me know. If you ever catch a spelling error or some kind of a mistake, let me know. The thing that we could really use somebody is trying to step into the role of program coordinator. And program coordinator is a person that makes the arrangements with the demonstrators, that schedules the demonstrators. As we continue to do these meetings throughout the rest of the pandemic, and maybe even going forward, we're going to have a number of well-known demonstrators that are going to be doing streaming demonstrations, like John Jordan's next month. If you've been part of the club, you know that we've had 5 or 6 in the past year, and this has gone over really well. We've had some really nice, really good demonstrations, and some really good professional people demonstrate. I'll help you get ready to do that. I'll tell you kind of what's required, and it really doesn't take much. And I think one of the things is some people have a little bit of fear about spending the company, listen to me, the club's money. We'll tell you what's about right for a demonstrator and give you carte blanche up to that amount to work something out with them. Talked about the library, right?
Mhm.
One last thing that I would talk about as far as volunteers is we could use board members. We're still moving forward with last year's board. We have a couple of people that have been on it for a while. Not excepting myself. But if you'd be interested in serving on the board or in any of these positions, please let me know. I'd appreciate it. Anybody that knows, have I forgotten anything? I think that's pretty well it. So thank you for your attention. Our demonstrator this evening is Tom Hipsak. Tom and I are old co-workers. We spent time together in CNH down in Racine.
Yep.
And Tom is going to demonstrate the Ringmaster system to us.
Yes,
Thank you.
quite all right.
Take it away.
All right, but before I actually do that, I need some help from my colleagues out here. And that is, I purchased one of these small little chucks. My son was using it where one of the jaws is secured only by one screw. He got a catch on one of these jaws and broke the screw off. I tried drilling it out with a drill bit, and the drill bit broke and stuck inside there. So I went to the other side. Wouldn't you know it, I did it again. Do we have any machinists out here or shade tree mechanics that can help me out with this? Because I found out after I tried contacting the place where I bought it and another place, you can't get anything for these. Once you break or damage any one of these apprentice type tools, you're done for. You can't get anything to help you with it. So unless I get that screw out, it's junk. So anyone that can help me, I would appreciate it.
There's something, I think it's called an easy out, I don't know if that would work.
Well, I gotta get a hole there first, and right now the hole is filled with a drill bit.
I've done without drilling the hole and it.
Uh-huh. Maybe getting a reversed,
It's a, yeah, it's a reverse thread, and I think it almost like makes its own hole.
okay, but will it ease out that,
I don't know.
Broken
if
bit?
it in there, that's pretty hard to steal, I think.
it is, yeah. So,
Tom,
yes.
this is Dennis Mogul. Bring it over to my house.
Oh,
I'll get it.
I'll do that. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do before I get started is a tool review. I like turning pens for the troops. And when I first started turning pens, I purchased the Whiteside end mill kit. And these work pretty good, but you gotta sharpen them. And after you sharpen them with this router bit sharpener, they get dull again real fast. So I went to the Whiteside carbide, and I really wasn't real happy about that either. So eventually, when they were on sale, when they were getting rid of it, I went to the Woodpecker end mill cutters. And I was very, very disappointed with them, because I use a drill, a hand drill. And what I wound up getting quite a bit of, and I'll pass this around. There we go. That sharp bit would hook, and I would tear up my my pen blanks, and I tore up quite a few of them. But if you use it on a large blank like this, it doesn't do much better. Depending on the grain orientation, you get a wavy surface. You don't get a flat surface. So I set this aside for some time, didn't use it. Went back to these 4 fluted bits because they gave me a nice clean cut and I didn't have to worry about catching or anything like that. Well, then I just couldn't give up the fact that I spent so much money on this. So I thought, what if I put it in a drill press? And that's what I did. I put these in a drill press and I held my pen blanks with the same vise that I used to drill them. Oh, I got such smooth, clean cuts, it was unbelievable. So that's what I do now in the future, is I use that end mill cutter in my drill press with the drill vise. Just a tip for your reference. Does someone want me to pass this around too? Just to take a look at it? Yeah, it really makes a nice clean cut, cuts easy like butter. And I have a tremendous amount of control with the drill press. Yes.
I don't use one of those. When I'm doing it, I put a rod in my tailstock.
Uh-huh.
The Jacob's chuck. That fits inside the brass tool.
Yeah, they have these various sizes as well.
Well, I mean, I've got that set from Penn State for knocking out for disassembling pins.
Okay,
I put that in the Jacob's chuck and I slide the brass tube on there. And I took a faceplate, put a wooden disc on it, put sandpaper on that, and I just sand.
oh, okay, okay.
And I can ride it back and forth on that rod. And I get a nice sanded finish.
Sure.
Yeah, they even sell a jig for that, you know, you put like a mandrel, you put it, and then you go up against it. Sanding disc, and that's how you get it square and smooth.
Yes.
And I just used the thing on my lathe.
Uh-huh. Well, there's all kinds of ways, and this is what I wound up using. I didn't think of sandpaper. I didn't think of a way I could really get something nice and flat and straight.
And then I can use the micro mesh and get it real polished. On
Yeah, yeah. Okay, then I'm gonna move on to my demonstration tonight. For some time, I thought about getting a Ringmaster because I have a board at home. It's made out of sunflower husks. And I wanted to make a bowl out of it. So I purchased this lathe mounted Ringmaster because I did not want to create a bowl with a hole in the middle, in the bottom. If you've ever been to demonstrations of the Ringmaster, they have a hole in the bottom where you have to use this mandrel with your board mounted to it, cut your rings, and then once you finish your bottom ring, you got to plug that hole. I did not like that. So I came up with my method that I'm going to demonstrate tonight. And what I like about my method, there is no hole, and there's a nice transition from the bottom ring or the second ring to the bottom, nice and smooth. So I'm just going to pass around some of these bowls. What I do not like about a Ringmaster, everything looks like a flower pot. It's straight. So I want something with a little more curve, and I'm going to demonstrate how I do that as well to get more and more curve to my bowls, so they look more aesthetically pleasing. This is a bowl. It's not a Ringmaster bowl, but it is my first segmented bowl that I've ever done. And this was done with all of those maple strips that the woodworkers had. So there's a lot of good uses for that. There's a lot of material there. You still got more of that?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, well, I got what I got, and I'll make some more of these eventually. The first thing you have to do, I should say, with a Ringmaster, they come with a set of cutters where you can reverse them, and you may have to sharpen them. So they give you instructions how to create a little sharpening jig here, where you put a blade in there, and then using a diamond hone, once that blade's in there, sharpen your blades. A sharp blade is essential for a nice clean cut. You don't want to turn too fast, otherwise that blade, when the ring comes loose, it'll go flying. To put the blades back on, they have this nice little magnetic holder. You know, once they're on the magnet, you just place it up there and tighten down your blades. For some time before I started using this, because I didn't read the instructions first. I thought, how am I gonna square this up to the lathe? And I thought and thought and thought, and I finally came up with the idea, speed square. I cut the corner away to clear these flanges here, and now I can square this up to the whole long surface of the Ringmaster versus the instructions in the manual that square it up to these little flanged edges. So I got a lot bigger surface to square it up to. And that's what I'm gonna do now. To do that, I'm gonna mount a blank in here.
What are those things going for?
I think about $400 if I'm not mistaken. I was looking at buying another tower, my 14-inch robust lathe, and they're $200 just to buy the tower. I'm going to tighten this up. This is an 18-inch swing on this lathe, so I had to make this riser block to make this demonstration. They asked me some time ago to do this demonstration, and I couldn't do it because I did not have an 18-inch Ringmaster. So there we have it. Now it's all mounted, and it's just a matter now of cutting. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to square this off. And I'll use a hole. I'm using a half-inch setting or half-inch adjustment in my demonstration here tonight. There's other adjustments, 3/8, 5/8, half-inch, quarter-inch. So this is the one I'm going to go with tonight. Okay. Oh, we're at 0. I found also that you don't want to go too fast. About 1,000 or so is about all you really want, because when this comes off, it goes flying. I cut the, let's see, I'm going to cut this one first. And go the other way. Okay, to be clear. Now, depending on the thickness of your board, your setting varies. The angle you're going to cut. And for this particular pins or gauge setting that I'm using right now, they have a chart here. And I measured my board and it's 7.756. And the difference between 0.75 and 756 is 2/10 of a degree. So they have this great little XY device that once you set this dimension here and put it up against here, you can accurately control your settings. But I got a lathe here, so I know I'm not going to mess with that kind of detail because I'm going to turn it anyway. So I'm looking for an angle of about 33.6 degrees, and I find the scale on this to be more than accurate enough for my needs. I'm going to adjust this. and index it. Lock it down and cut my next ring. Back it off, cut the other side, and it's going to come flying off. But it'll be captured in the tool. Now I'm going to cut a second ring at the same angle. I just move my index up to the next hole, cut my next ring. And since this is like watching paint dry, I'm not going to go any further. But I have two nice rings that will also mount to this. I did not clearly think my idea through when I decided to use a chuck, because what happens is this mortise is now on the inside of the bowl. I thought it was going to be on the outside, and I was going to use that as my clamping. So I found that I have to put a glue block out here. And I found out also that you have to add the glue block after you cut your rings, because otherwise you'll get some interference with the tower here. So for just quick demonstration purposes, I am going to super glue it in place. I don't like using super glue because I get a respiratory reaction from it if I breathe it too much, but for this short little demonstration, we're good. That's good. Now, hopefully that's going to be just going to stay there. And I can come over here without necessarily removing my Ringmaster at this time. Create a tenon. Is that locked on? Yeah, it looks like pretty good. So now I'm going to create a tenon for my chuck. Good enough. And it's concentric to the rest of this last and bottom ring. So now I can take this off. And I have a stack of rings, and you notice this first ring is cut a little straight and a little larger. Well, I'm going to shape that to my own desires when I'm done. I found that because I don't have a hole here, I cannot use this clamping device to glue all my rings together. So what I do is I have a couple of plates that I'll put on here. I glue this. Now they're glued together. I'm not going to demonstrate any gluing, but that's the idea. So I now oriented my rings the way I want them so they match, and I've glued them together. I still need to glue this one on, and what I'll usually sometimes do is put it on my lathe again using my coal jaws. This centers it, and then I'll actually have a mark here. I'll bring my tailstock up, apply pressure, and I now have a ball that's glued up. And it will probably look something like this when I'm done. Now, I don't necessarily like the flower pot shape. That tends to have no aesthetic appeal to me. So I like turning my rings a little thicker than probably the Ringmaster will allow to give me more flexibility in turning, which means that I have to turn two boards. This will give me a thicker ring that I can deal with. Misplaced my. Forgive me. What are you looking for now? A small little flat wrench.
Is it up on top of the other?
No, all I got up there is my that's all right, well. First one is going to be a cleaning cut. Just to clean it up. I'm going to use the same settings. And what did I do with my guide? This is my problem. I tend to sometimes forget where I put things. My little pin that I have to put in there to set the what do I do with that?
Is it over to the right by your turn ball?
Turn ball. Here it is, right here. You're right. Okay. I'm going to lock this in here. And what I'm also going to do, I'm going to take a magic marker, a Sharpie, and I want to mark this index right here. And the reason being, because I'm going to alternate holes. So instead of now going to set this back to my 33 degrees. And I'm not super concerned about the angle because I'm going to be finished turning it anyway. In this case, instead of moving one location, I am going to move two locations. That's one ring, and it's considerably thicker than the first one. So let's see if I can cut one more ring here. See, we go. Got a count here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is why I don't put the glue block on right away. Otherwise, I would not be able to come up here this close. Come off here. Now, obviously, these two rings don't match up because they were cut larger than what you would normally cut it for. So now I'm going to add another one. And here it is. Also, what I did, because I'm using 2 boards, I did not drill the hole from the same side, so that when I put my rings together, I'll have some kind of a nice eye-shaped design there. Now I remember, because I marked where the first hole was, I am instead of going 2, I'm going to go 1. Now, if I was to stack these rings up, see, we got it. This worked at home, it better work tonight. Oh, I know, that one won't work. So the next one will. So I went 1. So I'm going to go 2. Lock it down. I'm getting a little aggressive here. Case here. Oh, solid. Slipped, it came loose.
We're in reverse.
Am I running in reverse? Did I hit a reverse switch? Yeah, I hit a reverse switch. That's what it was. That's why we're not cutting. Okay, good. Let's see if I actually got, there's some rings here that are going to glue up to be a bowl. Well, that one, okay. Got these 2 here. Okay. There's a nice thicker glued up bowl. And if I match my grain, you can see what I was saying about the grain pattern you're going to get. Okay, now that I've got this all glued up and I've got a tenon on there, the next thing to do is to finish turning the bowl. So I'm going to remove the Ringmaster. And by the way, on my demonstrations, I usually go pretty fast because a lot of the stuff is kind of boring. And I don't like to necessarily bore my audience. When you buy your Ringmaster, they give you some steel plates to use underneath here. And I found it difficult to up my Ringmaster because the plate would move. So I put some blocks on that would fit inside my ways where they wouldn't move back and forth. I just found the wrench I was looking for. For this demonstration, because this did not match the lathe bed here, I made these little magnetic blocks. So they just set up underneath there. They're not going to fall. I can very easily go ahead and mount my Ringmaster with less effort. Okay, once the bowl has been dried, now it's just a matter of finish turning. Once again, I'm not going to do a super job of turning here because I leave that up to the other turners to demonstrate good quality turning. I'm just going to give you an idea about it. To sharpen my tools, I like the Tormac jig system. And what I like about it is the repeatability. So I'm going to remove this. This is already adjusted, but they have this device here, an angle, a gauge. Just bring it in here. I can see if you can see that there. Line up those wheels, tighten this up. And I'm going to use the marker method so that you can see this. Normally, I would not even use the marker method at home because it's that accurate. Insert this. Set it to the proper depth using this other gauge. That's all I have to do. Turn it on, slide it in here. And it's sharp. Unlike the Wolverine where you have to in and out to tweak it, test it. One shot, I'm done. Now, normally when you're turning, you want to turn from smaller to larger on the outside, but I can't really do that on a push cut, so I'm gonna have to use a pull cut. I'm gonna bring up the speed a little bit. Let's see, we're getting a good view there, okay. And I want curve. So I'm gonna get kind of like a little OG here. One of the reasons why I leave a larger straight cut. And this is pine, so there's probably going to be a lot of end grain tear out here. And there is. So what I am going to do, especially right here, there's a lot of end grain tear out. I'm going to use a shearing cut. I'm going to drop my tool handle way down, and I'm going to cut on this edge, the long edge, and I'm going to get like little whisper shavings. This just eliminates a lot more sanding. Let's take a look at it. Okay, I got rid of a lot of it. I still got a lot on the edge here, but I'll take some of that away. Now I can do a push cut here. And I'll do a shear cut here. Notice, I don't know if you can see them, the tiny little hairs that are coming off there with a shear cut. Okay, it doesn't look too bad. I got some tear out here as well, end grain tear out. Let me shear cut that as well. See those fine little shavings coming off of there. Of course, you can sand this out, but that takes a lot longer. And I don't care to sand. See what we got. Oh, it feels better already too. Yes. Okay, that's about all the time I'm going to spend on the outside. I got some shape. It's not important for this demonstration. Now we need to go to the inside. And I like to turn my bowls with a uniform thickness. So I either use a calipers or I use this gauge here that, okay, I got about a ½ inch there thickness. So I got a lot of material I can take away. One of the items I forgot to bring, Cindy Drozda, I don't know if any of you know her, very, very famous turner. We've had her demonstrate here at one time. She sells an LED light that is a magnetized and sits right here on your tool rest. And then I wrap the cord around here so it doesn't get tangled. I get all my light right where I need it. So if you got any light issues, as opposed to some light out here that with a gooseneck that's trying to shine in there and getting in the way of your handles and everything, that little LED light that she sells is worth it. I looked into buying the materials to make my own. For the material I would have to buy, I bought it from her. It was cheaper. And it works. And it works. It puts the light right where you want it. Now, you notice when the bowls are passed around, they were nice transition here. I'm going to go to another gouge that I use quite often. It's sharpened at a very, very shallow angle here. Some people call them a bottom feeder. Just removing that material away from here. And I'm removing that mortise that was drilled in there earlier. I'm used to grabbing my robust scout little bar here along the whole length of the lathe to turn it off. Okay, we need a little bit more taken off here. Make the transition. That's pretty good. Sometimes to refine it, I go to my scraper on the bottom. I didn't bring my negative rake, which I would use on the side, but I'll use this on the bottom. It helps me control here. Let me raise this up a little bit. Get a nice transition. Now, normally if I'm doing this at home, my goal would be to, make this a uniform thickness, but for this demonstration that there's no purpose served here. What I will do that I like on my bowls is I like to recess this. I like that little taper, it draws your eye into the bowl. So now, for all intents and purposes, let's say I've completed turning this bowl. We've got to finish it. If you're a turner, you're familiar with jam chucks. Let's see here. Oh, here it is. But I prefer going with the cold jaws or a vacuum chuck. I also have a vacuum chuck at home. If I can do this without having to change the roof. Nope, we're going to have to maybe make an adjustment here. We're planning. And as you can see, this is going quite fast. If you're a woodworker and you have any kind of board at home at all, or something you can glue up, you can make a bowl from it. If you're into the dizzy bowls, who's familiar with the dizzy bowls? Where they take a lot of thin strips and they keep on rotating a little more at a time. You get that swirl pattern. Those are basically segmented layered, Ringmaster type bowls.
Did you ever make your sunflower seed bowl?
No, I'm still gonna do that. But right now, I have a bunch of mulberry blanks that I have to finish that are dried and ready to go. All of these pine boards we're playing. I really haven't done that bowl yet. I haven't committed myself to doing it yet.
If you said it, I missed it. What do you glue the rings together with?
I didn't say, I usually use Type Bond 3 because it's waterproof. I don't know what somebody's gonna put in there. No, I don't know if how they're gonna wash it. And I'll go with the Type Bond 3.
Is there a
maximum thickness of board you can do with the Ringmaster?
I think if you start out with this big and you go with the three spaces at a time, you can get a pretty wide ring, but you got to start out with a much bigger blank to get those rings, because you're going to have a lot of waste, and you probably have to go to 3 boards. Right now, I'm just working with 2. Actually, I should pass this around so you get some idea what it will be when it's glued up and what you can do with that in the way of shape. If you cut thin rings, then you're locked into that shape. You have no control over what you can finish. So I really like the thicker rings from multiple boards. Okay.
Have you worked before with mulberry?
No, it looks almost like,
You're gonna be disappointed.
why is that?
Well, the wood, when you get it, it's a real nice color. And then
Yeah.
In a couple of months, it's brown as but walnut.
Yes. Uh-oh.
Take a picture. Quick. Take a picture. Quick.
I had 3 pieces of wood pile and that put up to them and just put them in the fire.
Now, we just go ahead and we turn off our foot.
Yeah, I wish somebody would come up with a book that tells you this.
Would be quite that speed. And when I turn my foot off, I usually just go straight in initially. Ah, there we go. So now I want to recess the bottom a little bit. And now you can embellish the bottom any way you want, and you have a completed bowl. Factor in your glue time, and it doesn't take long at all. Just hand this around. Once again, I did not finesse the details.
Before you pass it around, hold it up.
Oh, so the,
Down to the folks at home.
all right, let me get back here with some lighting. Outside, profile. And how that differs from the traditional Ringmaster, it's just a flower pot.
So the height of your bowl is limited by the size of your lathe.
Yes, the ring diameter, how big you can cut. This is sized, my Ringmaster is sized for a 16-inch lathe. And I thought that was more than adequate. It was the biggest lathe I had. But I like how to use it, and I'd like to use it on my 14-inch lathe. So I'm thinking of buying just a tower to convert it to a 14-inch. Here I had a block to raise it up, but to make it smaller is an issue. And once again, I didn't worry too much about grain orientation there. So anyway, Tony, we're going to have a break, and then I got some more stuff to discuss for the beginner turners that may be in the crowd.
Okay, before we break, does anybody have any more questions about the Ringmaster?
So you have to buy, the Ringmaster has to match the lathe.
If you want a lathe mounted Ringmaster, it has to be sized for the swing of your lathe. And they got towers, I think from 10-inch all the way up to 18-inch.
Thank you.
I think that's what they've got. So they got 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. And the price is, this tower doesn't make much difference in the price. They're all about the same.
Does anybody at home have any questions?
Okay. Oh, I have one more thing. When you saw me demonstrating, my chuck was mounted to the lathe. That spaced my board out far enough so that I could actually align the Ringmaster to the board. But if you, for some reason or another, you have to get out further, you'll need an extension. If an extension is too long, cobble up a couple of spindle adapters and you'll get it out a little further. I have a couple handouts here, the hard copies. I'll just pass them around. You can look at it. This is online. Tony has put it on the line so you can get a copy of it.
All right. So you have some stuff left to do.
I have some
So
initial small items to do.
let's take a 10 or 15-minute break.
By the way, how many beginner turners do we have here? Okay, we got, well, Ron, you're not a beginner, but thank you.
Let's see what you got. And I took what they call eccentric foot turning. But I had 2 blanks of these at home, and my lathe is not big enough to handle these. So I called the instructor, I had him once before 3 years ago. I said, I want to bring a couple of trays down and turn it. Yeah, he's bring, come on. So I took these blanks down there, and the rest of the stuff I had to bolt and the marble. So when I went down, I made these first, and then I started taking the class, what they call eccentric turning. And this is 103. And the reason this is not finished, but one thing, because I was too busy making stuff for Christmas, I didn't have time. But I told him that I was gonna, instead of laying it down like that, I'm gonna put legs on it. So I'm gonna drill 3 holes here, and like I discussed with the fellows over there, now which way would you put it? Display it this way with the flower up? Or with the flower down? That's the decision I gotta make.
Lower down.
So,
Lower up there.
and I'm gonna put it in the lathe, and then I got an indexing. And then I'm gonna come in with in 3. And then I have another one. I got 2 more, and those are made out of ambrosia maple. And one of them, I didn't get much offset on it because when I started, I didn't have the right center in the lathes. And when you make these, you gotta have the center with a cup in the center. You know what I mean? It got that circle around it. I didn't have that, and this thing kept moving on me. So once they got me straightened out, then I made this one, and then the larger one I've got, I went in from both sides. So in the center, I wound up with an oval. But I wish I would have had more of would have made more of an offset. But there too, they're up to this point, and then what they did a lot of what they call it. Well, I need that, what you're spray painting, what you call that?
So airbrushing. Airbrushing?
Airbrush, they did a lot of airbrushing. And the next meeting, I'm gonna bring some pictures in what they do. It's pretty, but I don't like it. I wanna see the wood, you know what I mean? So anyway, the one piece I made, before I get anything to do with it, they had it airbrushed already. Yeah, I'm in the process now trying to sand all that stuff off of there. Oh, Jesus. But I'll get it. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Klaus.
You're welcome.
Okay, I brought in 3 items. 2 of these items were in the virtual gallery that we had earlier in the year, or even last year. But I decided to bring them in so people can actually see them up close and personal. This is just a simple cherry, small cherry vase, but the bottom has this interesting effect that was carved into place. And this is an acrylic paint that crackles, and then it's coated with an epoxy resin. And it gives you, at least in my sense, artistic sense, it gives you the impression of a wooden vase inside of a ceramic vessel. That's what I tried to achieve with that one. This is a takeoff of a demonstration that was done by Rebecca DeGroat back in February, March, something like that. And she does these very distinct turned pieces with these funky spider legs, insect legs, whatever you wish to call them. This was an existing piece, this sort of vortex kind of vase, but I added the legs to it, and it's not exactly the way she does it, but it's close. It's you know, the seams weren't the best in the world, but there are little splines in the corners, and they do look like articulated legs. They're kind of cool. And the inside has the patina paint finish, the reactive metal paint that I did a demonstration a couple of months ago. And this one is a simple little bowl. I think it's a sculpted maple. I'm not exactly sure, but I cut a groove in it on the top and did this is an epoxy resin pour that's been colored. And I added my little distinctive copper legs onto that. So 3 pieces.
Right spot.
Yep.
Okay. I think this is choke cherry, but I'm not exactly sure. It had a huge crack from drying because it's got all kinds of knot holes and pith and everything in it. So I filled that with colored epoxy, put it in my pressure pot, and pretty out of balance. It was I tried bolt gouges, spindle gouges, nothing seemed to work. So I ended up using the, what is that, Easy Cut, the carbide cutters, and did a lot of sanding, but I like those wild edges like that. Sanding sealer helped a lot, but I don't like to use that anymore because it smells so bad. Any questions?
What'd you end up seeing?
This part of the thing,
No,
I use lacquer sanding sealer, and then I put a couple coats of antique oil over top of it.
My grandson Jay, and he brought 2 of his balls that these are his first balls he made.
So this one's walnut, it's returned, and I put velvet oil on it. And this one is cherry that I made on the Ringmaster. Also with velvet oil on it. That I made today. This one I made like last week.
And this is my sample ball that I turned while I showed him how to turn his walnut ball. And it wasn't really intended to be a finished ball, but it worked out pretty nice. So I finished it after he went home. And this was kind of getting familiar with the Ringmaster because I only got it a week ago. And so I was turning these rings yesterday, and I glued it together last night and worked on it today while he made that ball today.
Breath supply, that's what it's called. You guys like it and agree.
These are a couple of things that I've done in the past. One is a 4-sided bulb, but this is using therming techniques. I don't know if anybody remembers the tensegrity piece I showed a couple months ago. With that was using inside therming as well. This one, if you look at it, it has a convex curve this way, with a concave curve this way. So it truly is a complex curve that is in the side of the bowl. This one happens to be 4-sided. You can do many number of sides you want, 3, 4, 5, you just keep going. As you go up in the number of sides, then it looks more and more like a regular bowl. But of the ones I've done, actually the 4-sided one I like least. But it is the most dramatic and reminds me of a throwing star. So I'm not sure I like that. But I may do a demo on inside turning in the future. This is a Taurus, and one of the things that I got interested early on in turning. I don't know if any of you know Michael Foster out of New Hampshire. He's appeared in the American Wood Turner on several occasions with his work, and he does what's referred to as Taurus knots or knotted Tauruses, or torides, the plural Taurus. So he does knotted Taurus, which are these twists as you go around. This is what is referred to as a twisted Taurus. So what you do is you turn a Taurus, and then you split it. If you split it correctly, and this is a double split, it'll come apart. If you only do a single split, it won't come apart, but you have what's known as a Mobius strip inside of the piece of wood. And so the even numbers splits will separate, the odd number splits will not separate. And if you do it just right, where you have a 1/3, so if you split this into thirds, the ring itself is a third and the opening is a third, then they will fit together. It fits together like it's made for itself. So it fits together and just hangs there. So it's a very interesting shape, and these are called twisted tori instead of knotted tori. And then, anybody know what a Taurus is?
Yes.
Okay. So I find tori to be incredibly interesting figures.
Thank you.
We have a lot of seasoned wood turners here. And we have a couple of new members as well. So I thought I'd bring a few items that if you are a new or seasoned wood turner, you may want to consider making these. Things I made for my own use was a honing wheel. This is a leather belt that I bought at Tandy Leather, and now I have my own little hone. Put it on here, run it in reverse, and you have a beautiful hone. I also like making my own little drum sanders that I can turn directly onto my spindle here. It's tapped in the inside. I have a sander that I made for my lathe, and with the help of Dennis Molt and his wood metal lathe, I made a stand for that sander. I recently had to make a center wheel for a spoke T cart, and I needed to drill a bunch of holes into that center hub, so I made this. Put this in your line it, lock it in, just go ahead and drill. Use your index. Quite often I make stick pins and I need to change drill bits. So I bought these at the woodworking show, these chucks, several years ago. Made the handle. Now, I just, for my small bits, I can drill holes. I also use jam chucks quite often. So here's one I made and threaded. I prefer to thread it over a tenon because this is more consistent. recently, the other day, I watched a YouTube video on a guy making bottle stoppers. And one of the things that he did was he took this thing and he went in here and he turned it a little bit to get his thread started. And then he took it out, cleared it out, and he did it again, and he did it again, and did it again. Must have taken 3-4 minutes. Way, way, way too much time. My method, turn this way down slow. Hold it up there. Done. Matter of seconds. Now, if I was to turn this, crank up some speed here. Waste away some material. I like them as shallow as I can in a refrigerator. And then I also size my stoppers very, very accurately to fit plastic gift boxes. Nope, got to go a little more. And I'm just doing this just for demonstration purposes. Okay, that fits. Now I'll finish turning. Oops. Pliers, pliers, pliers. There it is. Where do I get my material for doing bottle stoppers? I don't throw away any wood. Hardly any wood gets really thrown away. It's got to be some really bad scrap before I throw it away. When I'm doing a bowl out of a log, I usually leave the log sections rather long so I can cut off any cracking. Wherever I don't have a crack, I'll mark it and I'll cut these rings for my bottle stoppers. This is a whole piece of wood that normally would go in the trash. So now I've got my bottle stopper. This is, by the way, this is Purple Heart. And I applied finish to it. And the way I apply finish is with rubber gloves and finish. I use wipe-on poly because I want as durable a finish as possible because it's going to be handled. So I don't apply it on the lathe. Once it comes off the lathe, I put it on there. I got rubber gloves on. I smear it all around and I set them on a dry rack. If I've got several coats and I want to sand it again, I put it back on the lathe, sand it, apply more finish. Threads are still there. So now I like to buff my bottle stoppers. And to do that safely, I still have threads in there. I screw a 3/8 bolt in there. Now I've got something to hang on to when I'm buffing these. But because quite often I use the silicone or the cork stoppers, I got to remove that threading. I used to do a very, very unsafe method of removing that thread. I put a 3/8 drill bit in a drill press and did this. There was no control on that at all. I didn't like doing it, so I had to come up with another method. Put this in the headstock here. And I have the robust safety center. So what I'll do is I'll put this in here. Put this in here. What we got here? Okay. Now I've got a drill bit in there, and I'll hold this up here. And as the lathe is turned on, I just engage it in there as slowly and carefully as I want, and it goes in really nice and straight. Now I have the threads removed, and I can use the dowels to finish off my bottle stoppers. So that's how I do it. And the reason I do what I do is because early in my employment, I got paid by the job. The faster I could do that job, the more money I made. That is still in me. Time is money. And I don't want to spend 2 minutes on a 30-second job. So that's why I do what I do for all you new turners. All right, and also seasoned ones. Oh, one more thing. I like to make bottle stoppers with the stainless steel inserts. The problem with a stainless steel insert is you're screwing them into threaded wood. I don't like threaded wood. I like to, instead of drilling this for a 3/8 hole, I'll drill it for a 1/2 inch hole and put these brass inserts in here. But if you ever tried to put a brass insert into end grain, you know how difficult that can be. So what I do a little bit more, and I'll size these so that they'll have a friction fit when you put them in a 1/2 inch hole. Now I have basically $1 tied up into that knob, because that's about what these cost. However, if you go to Peachtree, they sell an insert like this. I'm going to pass this around. And basically what they are is for cast parts. If you have a plastic cast part and it's got a brass threaded insert in there, it's a mold for molding. And you can buy those for about 50 cents a piece. And you don't have to go through the process of filing away that thread. So that's what I have for this evening. Hopefully that was useful and informative to everyone.
Why did you just go for there?
This here is a spindle adapter sold by Stainless Steel Stoppers. Ruth Niles also sells them. So does Penn States. The difference with the problem with Penn States is they have a 1/8 thread only. They don't have a 1 1/4. And they do not have this cut in here for tapping. Now, my preference is without the cut. The reason is it forms the thread. If you don't get that lined up just right the way I do it, it's going to tear it up. But with the formed thread, it goes on really nice and it's less likely of stripping out. So if you are going to buy one of these and you got a 1/8 thread on your lathe, I recommend the Penn States one. But however, once again, the Penn State has another negative. They sell only 1 diameter. So I bought 3 of them and I took them to a machinist and had them machined the down to the guides sizes that I wanted. So. Anything else? Any other questions? You're going to use a lot of jam chucks as a wood turner. I found that with this robust live center or turning center, that if I put it into my headstock, I now have a nice drive center. 3/4 inch nuts are really cheap. So you can make these all day long for little or nothing. Also, if you are going to put this on your tailstock. You could turn it here and then mount it to your tailstock. So now you have a custom jam chuck on your tailstock. So these nuts are really handy, and where I used a lot of them was when I made, let's see here. Oh, I did some of the birdhouse, miniature birdhouse ornaments. And my experience with a wood jam chuck is eventually they wear out quite fast. So I made mine with corian. I just glued some corian up together and then turned it to the size that I wanted. This is good for almost eternity. And I could make so many of them. I never had to worry about concentricity. It was always lining up. There was no run out. It was just the way I turned it. It was always the same. So I really, really liked these 3/4 inch nuts. And what I would do, I would drill my hole just a little larger than the flats. And while it's on the lathe, I would use the tailstock, push the nut in, pull it back out, and then epoxy it in. I'm gonna, Clark. So you can make those extremely fast. I made one like this just recently to turn some ship wheel handles for Discovery World. They needed to replace the handles on the ship wheel that they had that they acquired. And to do that was a 3/8 diameter hole all the way through, and then they would use carriage bolts to bolt them to the wheel. So by putting a 3/8 bolt through here, this is a 5/16, I think, and then the tailstock's cone center, I was able to turn them. You're going to make a lot of jam chucks if you do get much into turning. Any questions?
How did you thread that sanding?
How did I do this?
Well, any of that, with the larger diameter, you screw those on.
Oh, I bought a Beal tap.
Okay.
A Beal tap, and what I would do is I'd mount this in my chuck, this piece of wood in here, and I'd drill the hole and I'd tap it. And that's what I did. Now, you can't tap all the way through, so some of it I had to hand force it through. And then I would reinforce my thread with CA glue and tap it again. Because this isn't that all that great of wood. But you can tap side grain fairly easily.
I've got it.
Yeah. No, that's how these were done.
So
Now,
you just
how
want a 1-inch Beal tap.
Yeah. Now, how I did this was I formed the tenon for this to glue on both ends, and I just packed shavings in there as tight as I could get. So somebody asked me, well, how do you change it? Where's the wastebasket? This sticks. I've had this for several years now, and I'm still using it. So it's not like I use it every day, all day long. So I can afford to throw this away and make another one. Anything else?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay, thank you for coming. I hope you found something informative.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Tom.
We're getting out of here at a fairly reasonable time.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Tom.
All right.
So remember, next month, don't come here. You might be by yourself. So we'll be sending out details. Also, like if it gets close to the meeting date and you don't see an invitation, email me. Or go on the website and hit the link or whatever, admin@mawturners.com or my personal email address. I got on Facebook tonight and I saw that somebody had received the meeting invitation, so I need to know about it before the meeting, so. Okay, thanks. Have a good January. We'll see you.